Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural institutions. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guests JuanCarlos Gonzalez. Juan Carlos is a highly accomplished photographer, and he's here today to inform us about his current exhibit and related book entitled Vermont Female Farmers. On view until July 13th at the Leica Gallery in Boston, the exhibit features 38 photographs of female farmers who work throughout the state of Vermont. Given that women comprise more than 40% of the farmers in Vermont, the exhibit and related book aim to amplify voices often overlooked, particularly those of women of color, and bring broad awareness to their labor, passion, and community impact. During the program, we'll hear why and how the exhibit came about. We'll go on a behind the scenes tour and in the process come to better understand and appreciate both Vermont female farmers as well as Juan Carlos's artistry as a photographer. Welcome. So delighted you're able to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I had the wonderful opportunity to visit the exhibit the other day. Terrific to see your work in person. Eager to hear much more about it and have you inform viewers. Before we jump right to that one, Carlos, would you share briefly just maybe a little bit more about your background, artistic, professional interest, please?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, thank you for the opportunity. Juan Carlos Gonzalez, as you mentioned, originally from Maunabo, Puerto Rico, raised and born there. I moved to the States in '99 to learn English. I feel that I'm still learning. Follow my professional career was in the pharmaceutical industry, where I worked as a compliance auditor. I traveled the world. Always had a camera with me. Always had a passion for the arts. We grew up in the projects where there was no resources for us to, buy a camera or buy professional equipment, even though that I always had a passion for the art. So disposable cameras, always capturing images. I have thousands of images saved in boxes from my childhood. Um, and even when I was in the corporate world, I will travel and I will take a camera with me and take images of some of the facilities. And when I
Mm.
send a report, I will include an image, even though sometimes the report wasn't as positive as they want to hear. But some of them will turn and say, I really like that picture. Can I get it in a high resolution? So it was until then some of my image were featured and published in National Geographic, Vogue magazine, and some other
Mm.
publications. And often my family will say, "Hey, so it's my daughter's birthday, it's my niece's birthday," and they all wanted me to document it. And when this took place with the publications, I was like immediately thinking, I guess that I can make a living out of this.
Yeah.
So then I always had a passion, like I said, for the arts, follow it, and then sort of like came to life when in a deep way when we moved to Vermont. That was in
Mm.
2019.
Terrific, terrific. Well, we're glad you did. Great career choice for sure. Speaking of Vermont, what inspired you to create this project centered on the female farmers in the state?
Yeah, so fascinating. My grandmother used to have a farm in Puerto Rico in Maunabo, in a sector called La Pica. And my mom used to go to school and sometime work, and over the weekends she will send us to our grandmother's house. She had a farm, and people will come over to the farm and say, "Excuse me, who's the guy that runs the farm?" And she was such a badass that she will say, "Well, I'm the guy." And then fast forward when we came to Vermont, maybe like 15 years ago to explore a little bit over the fall season, fell in love with it. Then we were looking for a place to kind of disconnect on the weekends, and we revisited this area of Woodstock, Vermont, where my office is in town, but we live in actual Plymouth, Vermont. Um, So then we were having dinner in one of the local restaurants, and as Greg, my husband, and I were having dinner, the person next to us says to the staff, "Who's the guy that you get the meats from and the veggies?" And that to me was just like, "Oh my God, we're still here. Like this is crazy that people are still thinking this way." And that just sparked that immediate reaction. I just told Greg, I said, what if I do something where I amplify the agriculture industry, especially the women, and hopefully work something out to change this mentality of who's the guy, or to people to say who's the farmer, period. Because it could be a man or a woman. And along those lines, I also want to mention that a lot of these farmers, there are a total of 45 that I end up documenting. Some of them have been inspired by their husband, by their dads, by their brothers. So this by no means is not to diminish some of the work that the man does, because there's a lot of compliment among them and internally, but it's more to amplify a feel that is just often oversee, and like you mentioned before, is over 40% are woman-owned in Vermont farmers. So that inspired the project. And then I presented it to my sister, who's a huge inspiration in my life. Um, a lot of when I look back at some of my inspiration and my mentors, they tend to be powerful women, like tennis player Serena Williams,
Hmm.
singer Jennifer Lopez, Olga Dañón. So these are very powerful women. So when I started creating this project, I just kept going back to, oh my God, this goes back to my growing up, which is my mom was one out of 11 majority woman, and always surrounded by a very powerful woman. And then while I was doing this project, there was just a lot of resemblance on growing up as well. So.
How did you go about selecting which farmers to feature and deliver this collaboration with?
So the idea started to only do 10. And I said, okay, I'm going to do 10 and document them during the winter, spring, mud season, spring, summer, and the fall. But as I was working, Emily Von Trapp was the very, very first farmer that I reached out and presented also the project. She loved the idea, and she invited me to come up to her farm, which is unbelievable, stunning. And while she was working at her farm, there were some other farmers that were kind of on their slow season on their farm, so they'd come and work with her, um, like Emily and Rose from another farm nearby. And then I told them, why I was there, and they was like, "Oh, I'm a farmer too. I have my own farm." So then, as I was like already collected and I selected the 10 farmers that I was gonna do throughout the year. They just kept adding. And I'm like, this is impossible that I can like leave them behind, in other words. So from 10, it grew rapidly to 45. So
Fabulous, fabulous. And then fast forwarding just a little bit, how did the exhibit, and then we'll hear the book as well, how did the exhibit come together at the Leica Gallery?
the Leica Gallery, I mean, I used their system, which is Leica Q2. Um, I was looking for something that it was kind of non-intrusive, and came up with this realization that there is this camera that I could use. Then I presented the project to Belle, who's currently the manager and the curator, who
Hmm.
did a phenomenal job curating the show. Um, and highly recommend her. So presented the show. Belle got back to me quickly and mentioned that her grandmother's a farmer and was in Vermont as well. So like that whole kind of tied together,
Oh,
and it was a full circle that he sort of like click immediately, and we met. It felt like that we knew each other from a long time, and here we are.
that's fabulous. Well, let's take advantage of some wonderful images that we have from the project, from the exhibition. A few words about individuals seeing here, her farming background, things you'd like to highlight, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Liz from Three Cow Creamery. I don't know if you can see in the image, but she was holding garlic, and she was feeding
Ah,
it. This is Blossom, her cow, and it is very very good apparently for the cheese making of. Um,
mm.
and it's fascinating because while I'm sitting on the ground with Liz, I could hear this bell in the background. And in the book, at the very last page in the book, I have a selfie with another cow that is literally behind me. And he said, you know, you don't have to worry about it. Just like if they shake their head, is when, you know, they don't mean to hurt you, but it's just they might hit you with the horn. So just be mindful of that. I'm like, whoa. So let me capture this. So, but Liz is a fascinating, another powerhouse, run the show, her and her two sons. Hundreds of acres, beautiful, beautiful farm. This was super early in the morning, and I was sitting in the ground. And one of the things that she said, you know, like, let me know what you need me to do so I can either pose her. And I say, no, just do your thing. And she was feeding the garlic, and it was just such a beautiful moment. And it was just that striking sunrise and moment and mood and everything that it just felt like this should be like the introduction of the book. So.
Yeah, what a gorgeous shot. And another tribute, I think, to the Vermont landscape and how
Yeah.
that added just another layer to this project to enjoy that in the background, as we'll see in some upcoming exhibits. But this struck me, this pose with these three women. Could you share a little bit about them and their efforts?
Yeah, so Susu Farm, unbelievable. They're just Susu Community Farm. And you know, and before I forget, you can find all these farmers on VermontFemaleFarmers.com. I put every website of each farmer so people can support them and learn how do they can obtain their produce and stuff. But Susu Farm in the background, if you could see, they were doing their own soil. So they believe on giving back to the earth instead of taking away, instead of making a hole and kind of digging into it. They just create, yeah, in this case, that's what they were doing. They were spreading their own soil. And it was just such a beautiful moment. Like we were talking and just like and the previous image they were just we were talking about like, you know, what do you have for the rest of the day? And they sort of came together and started talking about like this is what we're going to do. And I just said, can you just stay there 1 second? And it was just such a striking moment that one would have think that I asked them to pose, but it's just there, that's them, right? So it's just like that's what they do. So it was just such a beautiful moment. So um I felt that I couldn't miss that moment.
For sure, for sure. Have to say and agree and just say another word of endorsement for the website. Fabulous resource. I mean, there's lots of information about all the farmers and their establishments. So highly recommend viewers and others go to it. This wonderful shot in color here. Who do we see?
Yeah, this is Heather from Kiss the Cow. She actually she's also one of our state rep in Vermont. Um
Ah,
and unbelievable. They do such a great job as well. They have livestock, they have all kinds of vegetable. This was during the pandemic, and of course, I'm super far away, and I say, I promise I'll stay away. But she's another powerhouse, and doing great, great things for the state of Vermont as well.
it just occurred to me, speaking of the produce you're mentioning, what a great resource you have now for yourself and others to know where to get the very best in Vermont.
Oh my God, yeah, this particular farm, Kiss the Cow, they have incredible ice cream. It's like mind blowing.
Make a note of that for sure. Oh, I love this shot. This is just great. And I know you highlighted on your website as well. Who do we see here and what's going on?
Yeah, this is Hilo Farm. I don't like the kids are not there, but they were like around the corner. We were trying to keep them away from the camera. But she was feeding the chickens, and it's just so funny for you can see behind her there is two geese
Hmm.
patrolling the farm, and they protect these chickens like there's no tomorrow. So there was a lot of running around. She's like, just be prepared. They might come in charge, but just have your backpack to protect yourself. So, but yeah, she was just feeding them and at the same time collecting the eggs. And like, it's actually one of the very first images on the book that you could see her like collecting their buckets of eggs. They're just hundreds of eggs.
And just another example of your work capturing the incredible scenery in the background. Mm.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think that like one thing that I should mention is that when I was creating the project, there's three aspects of it, which is Vermont, female, and farming. So like every time that I documented each farmer, I kept in mind you need to maintain the tradition of what the project intended to do, which is amplifying the agriculture industry in Vermont. So the agriculture female farming industry in Vermont. So like every time that I capture an image, I just make sure that I capture those three elements of it.
Thank you. A terrific shot here. There's a lot behind this, I'm sure. Just a few words, please.
Yeah, this is Tammy. Tammy, this was like probably 95 degrees. I was riding her tractor. She was just getting all the hay ready. And it just feels huge fields of hay. We text each other and she's like, hey, I'm gonna get the hay ready. And I said, sure. I mean, one thing that is fascinating is just, they are out there from super early in the morning until late afternoon,
Mm.
so they're just powering through it. So I was riding the tractor with her and just having all this conversation
Mm.
and all that information.
Nice, nice. Let's continue and enjoy a few more. What's going on here and who do we see?
Yeah, this is Rita from Stitch Down Farm. Again, the same thing, beautiful property. This is like full of flowers right now, and the same thing with her fields. We were just walking around and she said I just whenever I visited each farm I will tell them, just do your regular data work and I'll capture them and I'll be out of your way. Some of these shoot I will end up staying there for hours because we just keep talking and just there's so much information. But she was just fixing all the hose that it was feeding water to the plants. And I just like this was like the perfect setting. I was just like, this is like you can, how do you say that word? When you think of a farm and a greenhouse, this is just like, wow, this is it right here. So
Yeah, yeah. The model in your mind, for sure, for sure. Uh, Fabulous. Oh, this is wonderful seeing the background. What's going on here and what does this farm specialize in?
yeah, so this is Darby Farm, and Heather is she does a lot of research for University of Vermont. And in this particular image, she's studying and you can see the different color and texture in the background, but it's just different grains that she's just studying in every plot and see how they do in Vermont. But she have her own farm that has been around for generations and generation from, they keep passing on through the family. And again, like she does a lot of work for the University of Vermont and some other research organizations, including Patagonia. So
Nice, nice. We have a couple more to enjoy before we hear much more about the book as well. Comment here, please.
yeah, this is Billings Farm. Billings Farm is locally in Vermont, Woodstock, Vermont. They were actually the first Billings Farm and Museum, the first organization that I presented the project. And I pitched it to them and I said, I would love to include your farmers. I would love to showcase the show here. They fell in love with it. They immediately say yes. And the project took about 2 years to document
Mm.
the farmers. Um, but they save the day. They say, yeah, we'll do it. And they follow through. And it was an incredible opening night. Most of the farmers came. We have over 200 people that came to the exhibit opening night. So it was fascinating. It was beautiful, my event.
What were the farmers' reaction to seeing themselves in the exhibit?
Oh, they were just blown away. It just some of them when they saw the images for the first time, frame and on the wall, some of them were crying, and of course they're crying.
Mm.
I'm crying. Everyone's crying. But it was just such a beautiful, that very first opening night at Billings Farm was just such a special moment because some of them didn't know each other, so they introduced to some new farmers, and as well as a lot of them brought their kids, their family members. Family came from all over the states, so it was such a beautiful opening night.
No, as a testament to your work, to the women featured, the exhibit has moved several times already before making it to Boston, and I know many more to come. Such a well worth example to share at many locations, museums, other venues as well. Last one before we hear about the book right here, please.
Yeah, this is Mary Lake, and he's just fascinated and interesting because Mary Lake is one of those powerhouses that every farmer will say, "Is Mary Lake part of the project?" I'm like, "Yeah, she is." I just haven't been able to track her down because she's so busy, and especially in the summer, she's like in Vermont, New York, like what she does is she shears and slaughter um, some of these goat and sheeps, and when she finally like say, "Hey, I'm going to be in Vermont and I have to do like 30, um, this will be a good time to maybe come by and see them." So like this image is in the book, but the one that is in the exhibit is different when she's on in action, right? Like sharing the goat, and they're just like so peacefully and so relaxed, and she just have that magic that I just don't know how she does it. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. The
this
Goat
Mary Lake.
Whisperer.
Yeah, seriously.
That's Yeah. How did you go about transitioning from the photographs, the exhibit mode, to getting the book in print and published, in addition to what you added to the photographs, as we'll soon see?
So one of the things that I immediately realized when I was documenting the farmers, I will send them an email and say, this is a little bit about the project and what it's intended to do and what I'm planning to do with it. Um, but also had a questionnaire underneath that will say your name, name of the farm, is this your main source of income, first generation or a continuation of the farm, location, you know, ways to people find you. But then this particular question, when I asked them, why do you farm? It was what inspired the book because there was just so much information. And like going back to like Tammy, for example, when I was riding the tractor with her, she just told me all this information and all this story about her and how she lost her husband during the farming aspect of it. Um, and the same thing with like Liz in the cover book. And so there was just so much information that I was gathering that I just felt like the world need to hear more about these farmers, that it's not just this pretty farm stand and the
Mhm.
delicious food that they provide to us in too many restaurants. Um, so like I feel that it was just so much information that in voice that it needed to be spread out. So that's when the book came along, and I decided to create a book as well.
And it begins wonderfully with terrific map to get a sense of the distribution being featured, and then an overview of the different farmers and farms being featured. And the links, as you noted on your website, very hot links to every one of these to find out much more very quickly. Let's get a sense of how the book is laid out and maybe say just a little bit more about what those questionnaires led to, and then the very insightful write-ups that accompany the photographs.
Yeah, so I think that one of the things, and I think that that will summarize kind of everything. So two things that I wanted to add to, when I was creating the book, I wanted to have a meaningful, impactful um, message. But also, when someone opened the book and read the foreword, I just kept thinking, who's going to be that person that it will make that first intro to the book. So I did a little bit of a research and find out that locally here in Plymouth, Vermont, our very first Congresswoman and first openly gay Becca Balin, used to spend time in her grandmother's farm here in Plymouth, Vermont. So I immediately thought of her. I thought of, reaching out. I reached out to her, sent her a copy of what I've gathered at the time, and she wrote an incredible, generous forward on the book. So, and I think that it just is such a great compliment to every farmer, and every farmer talk about their work, their hard work, what it takes to develop these relations with restaurants, with, from far and from local restaurants. People come from all over the place. People come from Boston, from New York, from, different parts to receive some of these vegetables. And I think like the biggest part that it was mind blowing at the same time is that every farmer, when you talk to them and when you read about them, they all believe in this work, and
Mm,
not only is that really, really hard work, but they believe in it, and they never show any level of resentment or any level of like, oh, I gotta go to work. There was
yeah.
always a smile while they were working, and it was just unbelievable. Um, it's just mind blowing to me. Like, this is Leslie Wells. Leslie actually is another powerhouse. She mentor a lot of women who are starting their own business and restaurants, and
Mm.
she's in the North Hero Islands part of Vermont. But this particular moment, she's moving the fences and saying, "Just be careful with this guy, because he might come after you." And sure enough, like, he's just like coming. I mean, thank God I have my backpack. Um, so it was just like good timing to have the backpack.
That's terrific, terrific. In closing, what's been some of the reactions and feedback that you either heard, received, or that's been passed on to you?
I think like I'm blown away by the amount of press that this show has gotten in Vermont. Like you mentioned before, it was at Billings Farmer Museum, the Vermont State House, Bennington Museum, Fleming Museum of Art in Burlington, Vermont. And then King Arthur headquarters, they had their first exhibit and they asked me to showcase this work. So it's been unbelievable the amount of press that we receive. Everything has been extremely positive. Like, obviously, like, there are times that I go online when I see the local news, uh, the news in Arizona, for example, like was sharing this, and just to read the comments, in the positivity, it's just been unbelievable. So it feels like they accomplished everything that I wanted to do, which is amplify the women in the agricultural industry.
Oh, you've definitely achieved that. I know a number of times, I can't think of how many dozens by now, friends and family that I've mentioned this to, and the interest that they've shown in either wanting to go to the exhibit or definitely going to the website to learn more, also find out about the book. Well, Juan Carlos, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program. I want to thank you so much for being here. What an amazing project. Again, I'm blown away. I was had the stereotype too. More than 40% of the farmers in Vermont are females, and the way you highlighted them in such a respectful way, what a tribute to them and all their work and what they do for the community. So continued success with future endeavors.
Thank you, thank you. And I think, like, before I forget, I think that the next part that I will want to do is hopefully revisit these farmers 10 years from now, but then also go back to Puerto Rico and do similar Puerto Rico female farmers. So
Wonderful. Really bringing it full circle back to homeland. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thanks again. Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you be able to tune in next time.